Last week we started with a nigun. You were here last week? You weren't here last week.
In spirit.
In spirit, that's good. These people are also in spirit, and they're on the screen as well. But the people here don't have name tags underneath them. But it's a good way to start. And once again, as we did last week, so you imagine yourself not in this room, but in a forest. Oh, you're making a name tag. So the people listening as well, do this. No, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't mean it. I know who Meryl is. And I got Franz Kafka. What was it? Something like Franz Kafka was the name. Yeah. So you want to, once again, imagine yourself walking through a forest. Today was a nice sunny day. So it's a nice sunny day in the forest. We've got a lot of forest around here in Sandy Springs, so it's easy to imagine yourself walking in the forest. And it's the time of year where the daffodils are just starting to come up and all the other little early emergence of the spring. And lots of birds, lots of squirrels. You're walking through this forest, you come up to a clearing in the woods, where the sun is shining down warm, nice sunshine, a nice breeze. And you look at the other side, end of the clearing, this appears to be a figure sitting on a log. So you start quietly walking that direction. And the figure doesn't move. He's got a talus over his head, and he's sitting there very, very still, his hands holding on to the talus. You sit down on the log and you feel his warmth radiating from this figure. Then slightly, he's just rocking back and forth slightly. And you hear, Ahino, Ahino, Amamaino. At which point you realize you're sitting on the same log as the Baal Shem Tov. He's trembling. Maybe you should get up and run away. I know you're glued to your place and you stay there, imagining, what world is he in? What visions is he seeing? What's in his mind? What fire burns in his heart? And then again, Ahino, try it with me. Ahino, Amamaino, Ahino. Again. Ahino, Ahino, Amamamahino, Ahino, Ayinanana, ayinanana, ayinanana. Ayinanana, ayinanana. Amamamama, ayinanana. Ayinanana, 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 ayinanana. Then you go up. Amamama, ayinanana, amamama, ayinanana. na na na, ay na na na, ay na 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 na, ay na 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 na, ay na na na. Ma 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 ma, ay na na na. Oh ma ma ma, ay na na na. Oh na na na. Oh na na na. Oh na 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 na. Oh na. So now I want you to imagine light, because we're going to talk about Or Ein Sof, which is infinite light. Last week we said Antu Chad, you are one, but not accountable one. That refers to the Or Ein Sof, which means light without end. It's very hard to imagine light without end. There's no background, foreground, it's just light. And if it's light without end, then you're not there. So how do you imagine it? So first of all, I talk about light, not a light that's coming from a light bulb, but the real light. The real light is more like the light that flashes in your mind when you have a moment of clarity. You were grappling with a problem so long, for hours, for days, maybe for years and years, for decades, you're grappling with this problem. And then it hits you, oh, light, clarity. Oh, I get it now. Now I understand. Oh. And it's not just you understand this one thing, you understand everything now. All the clouds vanish, all the darkness is gone. It's all light. So that kind of light is shining, except it's not light about one particular situation, it's light about everything. In this light, everything is clear. And anything could be. And whatever it is will be understood. You don't even have to understand. It's just reality. It's true. So now, one by one, all the objects in the room, imagine them, instead of being objects, they're light. The chair is light. It's not a chair, it's light. It's shining. And it's shining the same light as the table, as the floor. The people in the room, they're all shining, radiating, including you. You are just light, shining, radiating. And so that all these things, they're no longer things, they're all absorbed within one single harmonious light. Okay, so now you're standing before this light. You're feeling it, and you're feeling from this light endless warmth. It's like a powerful furnace, a furnace of this overwhelming love. Like pure love, like it's not conditional, it just is. It's absolute love. So you're standing there and you have the experience. The people have reported this experience. You so desire to not be. You don't want, what am I doing being? I just want to be absorbed within this light. Entirely consumed within a fire, within a light. How much closer can we come? We're still very distant. But we're trying to imagine it's infinite light. Is within, from within this light, okay, if you were within the light, you wouldn't be conscious, but if you could be the consciousness of this light, the chair doesn't have to be a chair. The room, it could be a forest. You could be a person, you could be an angel, you could be a fire, you could be a wisp of wind, of air. Anything could be. Nothing has to be. That's really why it's called infinite, because there's infinite possibilities. There's nothing that has to be. Time doesn't have to be, space doesn't have to be, nothing has to be. So anything could be anything. The only thing that's true here, absolutely true, is that whatever will be, it will be willfully, out of desire, out of a decision, out of love. It'll be joyful. Whatever it is, it has to be good. Because it's not going to be unless it's willed to be. And it's willed to be, then it's with absolute will and absolute desire and absolute love. So of course it's all joyful. That's the experience of this infinite light. Whatever is has to be with joy, with pleasure, with desire. So now from within these infinite possibilities of infinite light with infinite depth, as much as you try to get it, try to understand it, it remains mysterious, absolutely mysterious, like infinite. As much as you have of infinite, you don't get any closer to getting all of it. As much as you understand, you're not any closer to getting it. You're within this infinite light, and now arises a desire from within the light, a desire that there be a world. This world. A desire that there be this moment now, as it is right now. Okay, so now, if you have your eyes closed, open them and take a look around. You notice something different about this world we're in now and the world I just described.
Things interrupting my life.
Things are obstructing, interrupting the light. We don't see any light. I mean, light from light bulbs. But most of all, each of these things is screaming out, I'm just here. If we were within the infinite light, there, everything is light within light. It would be like, imagine one of those light shows, except they're doing it in broad daylight. Like a laser show somewhere deep within the sun. Right? There's nothing to see. It's like a kind of fantasy. It says at the beginning of the Zohar that as soon as there was desire for a world arose, says that God etched out engravings in the sky. Engraving into the sky. That's the metaphor. So if you're within infinite light, desiring, it'd be nice to have a world. Well, there's a world there because whatever he desires, it's going to be there. But what kind of a world is it? It's like engravings in the sky. Something like a fantasy. You have a fantasy in your mind. It's a fantasy. Is it a real world? If you would ask any of the characters in your fantasy, right? You're imagining all these people, however wild an imagination you have, maybe it's a Star Trek imagination, maybe it's some other Netflix somewhere, imagination, whatever characters there are. And you would go to one of the characters that's a figment of your imagination and say, hey, what are you doing here? Well, the character, I'm not here. Meryl's imagining me. That's all. I'm not really here. That's how they would feel. Could you imagine a character in your mind that would say and truly feel, well, I'm just here because I'm here? Maybe you have a very powerful imagination. I can't do it. I can't do it because all the characters in my mind, if I decide at some point the guy's not there, he's not there. They're figments. They're not real. They're not real in the sense they have no subjective experience. They can't have a subjective experience because it's just me experiencing them. A real world is made of one thing: subjective experience. It's experience from within. Each of the creatures is experiencing my own being. I am here. I mean, we look around at our world. We see everything has volition. All the living creatures, they act, they do, because they decided to do that, right? You ask the turtle, why are you going that way? I decided I'm going that way. If he could talk, that's what he would tell you. The bee, why are you going to that flower and not that? There's another flower over there. Why are you going to that flower? The bee would say, I decided. If it could be, it could. You see, that's the way they behave. Human beings are acutely aware of this volition because we're social. We're to such a degree social animals. But everything seems to behave with volition. And the most amazing thing is we go down even to the little atoms down there, right? Little particles. We can never predict exactly what they're going to do. We can just have probabilities, which are about as good as the probabilities we have when we look at how many Arctic wolf are going to get how many caribou this spring, you know. We have about the same chances of predicting as how many photons are going to leave from this atom right now. How many electrons are going to So maybe they're also with it, but everything has subjectivity to it. I am here, which should be impossible as long as you are within this infinite light. The infinite light is just the will of your creator. You're subsumed within the will of your creator. You can't, there's no subjective I, me, there's no volition. It's just, there's a being imagining you. So a figment of your imagination is not real because it's not a subject, it's just your object. We somehow become real. And this is a great mystery of creation. How does he do that? With everything else, we have beautiful anthropomorphisms to understand how creation, like we create all the time. We have ideas in our mind and we speak out those ideas. That's very creative. And we say, well, where did those words come from? When I started the sentence, I didn't know how I was going to end it. Where did those words come from? Oh, that's the creative act. You're experiencing it. That's how God creates. Yeah, sort of. It works. I'm creating words. I don't know where they came from. So there's something out of nothing. But if I would go and ask those words, I can't ask those words. They don't have that sense of self. How does he do that? How does he give us this? Each one of us has the experience that I'm the center of the universe. You can go walk down a busy street, Atlanta, Manhattan. It's crazy busy streets in Manhattan, Tokyo, right? Every individual walking down that street is absolutely certain he or she is the center of the universe. Why? The proof is each person calls himself or herself I, me. It's called anybody else I or me? No. So we all have this experience of being the center. Actually, the Mishnah says every individual has to say, for my sake, the world was created. We'll get to that too. But it's an amazing experience that we all have. We're, like I said, we as human beings are acutely aware of it. But when you watch a cow, a bird, a bug, they all seem to behave this way as though they are the center of the universe. What is an organism, after all? An organism is a creature. It has a boundary between itself and the rest of the universe. It sucks in energy from the universe inside its little boundary and does whatever it can to propagate more and more of itself. And each creature in the universe is doing that. More of me. That's all that counts. Okay, I have a clan, I have a tribe, I have a herd, whatever. It's more of us, but more of us because us is me. So we're all doing, somehow it's a beautiful harmony and it all works, a wonderful concept. We don't destroy one another until human beings come along. We don't, okay, but we, somehow, but basically, this is an amazing feature of our universe. This sense that if you ask, where is the center of the universe? Whoever is there will say, it's obviously me. Try to have the perspective of another person. You try. We have a lot of, as human beings, a lot of empathy to try to see the perspective of another. But in the end, it's our own perspectives. So how does God create that? And this was a huge problem to articulate what the answer is until there was a very great Kabbalist who lived in Tzfat in the 16th century, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the Arizal. And he had 2 or 3 big ideas. One of the big ideas, which totally took over the whole Jewish world. Like everybody is, wow, this is it. It was like rapidly accepted everywhere. I mean, it took about 50 years when in 16th century, 50 years is like 6 months in our times, right? This idea of tzimtzum, the primal tzimtzum. And there's even a record of Isaac Newton trying to explain to John Locke that how the world was created by the primal tzimtzum. And Gottfried Leibniz wrote about it. And it entered the world of the non-Jewish intelligentsia as well, because it was such a fascinating idea. The idea of the primal tzimtzum arishon, the primal tzimtzum means a contraction, to become smaller. In this case, it means a withdrawal. So usually a tzimtzum means diminish, make yourself a little smaller. But the first tzimtzum means an absolute withdrawal. Turn off all the lights. So this is what Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, we called him the Ari. Ari stands for Eloki Rabbi Yitzchak. And it's also, the word means a lion. So that's what he's called. The Ari Zal. Zal means Zichrono Levracha. It's memory for a blessing. So he gets called the Arizal, or the Ari. So the Arizal said, at the beginning, there was just infinite light. There was no room for a world to stand. Now, there could be a world, but it doesn't stand. It's not its own world. It doesn't feel itself to be a real world, just a fantasy. So then, God withdrew all the light so that there was a vacuum within the infinite light. If that makes sense to you, you were not listening. There's a vacuum within the infinite light. Okay, we'll get to that. And now all those etchings in the great big sky of a universe are now etchings in the darkness. Just as invisible, right? You have light within light. What's the difference now? You have etchings in the darkness or etchings in the light. They're both etched. What's there? But imagine it as sort of like, when you plug in the computer or reboot the computer and the power comes in, and all of a sudden, all the code that's in there now gets activated, and a whole world comes to be on the screen, on your display. So after the withdrawal of all the light, there's a thin beam of light that enters into this vacuum. And through these etchings that are left over from before the Tzimtzum, all that becomes activated so that slowly, step by step, gradually emerges a world. And then a lower world, and a lower world, and lower, until we get to as high-res, well-defined a world as you could possibly get. A world that says, I am here and your hand can't come in my space. A world of egos, which is our world, a material world. So it's all through this removal of light. Okay, so what was the question? Remember that there's a paradox in there about the vacuum within the infinite light. If it's infinite, how can it have a hole in the middle? If there's a hole in the middle, it's not infinite. There's a place where it's not going. It's not there. How can you tell me it's infinite? It's infinite except for this hole. I'm sorry. If it's everywhere, it's everywhere. If it's not everywhere, don't tell me it's everywhere. So a simple answer. As far as the infinite light is concerned, it's still there. It's only subjectively it's not there. So I'll give you a metaphor to grasp that. And there's a beautiful metaphor that was given originally by the Maggid of Mezrich. And his Talmud, Rabbi Shneur Zalman Luyadi, the Alter Rebbe, took it much, much further. It's just like this. It's a beautiful metaphor for Tzimtzum, a metaphor for Tzimtzum. So a young student, bright young student, is learning with a teacher. The teacher is teaching this and teaching that and so on. And then the student says, but I have a big question. What's the question? And comes up with one of those big whopper questions, right? And the teacher says, whoa, hold on. That's exactly what I've been trying to grapple with for the past 40 years. And the student says, so explain it to me. It took me 40 years and you want it on one foot. Well, the student says, you're a good teacher. What does the teacher have to do now? Teacher can write an entire encyclopedia on the topic. It's all there. It's all there, right? So what does the teacher have to do? If I would explain it to you, the teacher says, the way I see it, the way I understand it, you'd be totally lost. It would be like I just plucked you up and dropped you in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? Totally lost. You'd have no context. What's this and you wouldn't know what's important, what's not important, what's the foreground, what's the background. You wouldn't know. So, okay, so what am I going to do? Okay, so what the teacher does, the teacher's quiet. First thing he has to do is forget how he understands it. Forget all that understanding of it. All his words, how he says it to his own colleagues or thinks about it, forget all that. And he has to now go back to what is the basic point? What's the fundamental point of all of this? If I find 2 points, I'm off. I got to find 1 point, just 1 point. That's everything that one point. Maybe I can't iterate that point, but I have to know what that one point is. So all that information, it's no longer information, that's all gone. It's like he has to feel inside himself, where does this all come from? What is it? And once he's got it, then the next step is saying, oh, I figured it out. Now I have to know where the student is at. And I have to draw a line from this one essential point all the way to that student. The student lives in a different world. So I have to find how to explain it in that world of whatever he lives in. Maybe he lives in a world of, it's a little kid, tricycles, a bigger kid, bicycles, or a bigger kid, Teslas, whatever it is he's living in. Okay. I got to explain it in that world, not in my world. And I have to watch carefully the whole way along that I don't lose the point. It's got to be that point, and I got to bring it all the way down. And if I can't bring it down there, what does that mean? It means I didn't get the real point. Because if I got the real point, it should be simple enough that it can go anywhere. Actually, I tell this to writers, have the same problem. You know, you get these people who give you a submission, a simple story, and it's 7,500 words. And it's, all right, we got to bring it down to 800. I can't bring it down to 800. Then you don't know what you're talking about. If you know what you're talking about, you can bring it down to 250 words. And you know what? The best thing is to bring it down to 1 or 2 sentences and then work from there. But if you can't do that, symptom, then you cannot expand it. You'll be all over the place. Same thing, I think, with any good piece of art. You have very clear vision of what the point is, but the point takes up no space, has no information. It's just a point. But you've got it. You've got that point, and now that you could dress it up whatever way you want. You could go in this direction, it could go in that direction, go in many different directions. It's just this essential point, essential point that you've gotten from there, you can go anywhere. So this is how God is creating the universe. It's an amazing thing. We can look at how we do our creativity, and we get an inkling, a sort of a reflection in some way of how God creates the universe, because we're part of this universe that he created. So therefore, within us, this is how it's created. Right? Within our experience of the world is the ontology of the world. So we're doing it, our act of creation is the whole ontology of the universe right there. So this is the symptom. The symptom means that first there's Or Ein Sof, which is God saying, well, I could have anything, but I've decided to have this, but it really could be anything, but then it's not really a world. And he says, okay, I want to make a real world. What am I going to do? Get rid of all this, that this anything could be. No, there's no anything could be anymore. Forget that. I've got a point. It's this world. Why do I desire this world? What is this desire of world? What is that all about? At that point, all the light is gone. All that's left is a single point. And from that point, you can extend exactly, precisely this world and not another world. Okay, now you'll see how this metaphor of the student and teacher, the real beauty of it over here, how it fits perfectly. Go back to that, the teacher and the student again. Let's say this teacher comes to the student and says, okay, I'll explain it to you. There was a little boy, he had a tricycle, and he tells the whole story, okay? And the kid says, oh, nice story, nice story. And the kid thinks about the story. Oh, my teacher wasn't just telling me a story, the teacher was teaching me something. Oh yeah, this story is not really a story, there's something behind it. And thinks about it, and thinks about it, and thinks about it. And what do you know? After just 40 years, the kids figured it all out. And he's got the whole picture. And he calls up his teacher. Are you still alive? I got it. I figured it out. I want to tell you. It means this and it means this. And the teacher says, yeah, that's it. And you saw that all along? Yeah. But what about the story? The teacher tells you, I tell you the truth. I never saw a story. Exactly what you are telling me now. That's what I saw. In other words, when the student hears the story, the student's getting a story. When a teacher is telling the story, the teacher sees in every detail of this story, down to the crossings of the T's and the dottings of the I's, every detail of the story sees the idea that he's communicating. There is no story there. If George Orwell reads, what was it again? George Orwell wrote Animal Farm, right? George Orwell reads Animal Farm, or Jonathan Swift reads Gulliver's Travels. He doesn't see an animal farm. He sees the Bolshevik Revolution. That's what he's saying there. So the same thing. We said there's no hole. There's no vacuum as far as the Or Ein Sof is concerned. As far as the Or Ein Sof is concerned, all this is more Or Ein Sof. It's infinite light. Looks at a world, it's infinite light. Just like the teacher says, it's not a story, it's an idea. I don't know if you read a little while ago, I wrote a story, posted it online. The Tzaddik and the Dragon of Darkness. Nobody read it? You read it?
Started it.
Okay. You have to finish it. You're going to have to finish the story. But some of you read that over there's people here. There's little people inside boxes over there. Okay, on the other side of the tzimtzum. The Tzaddik and the Dragon of Darkness. It's 2 parts, but you can listen to the whole thing on the podcast. It's one long story, 37 minutes. So it's such a different experience. Somebody tells me they read the story and tells me the details. I said, no, that's not what the story is. No, the story, because I don't, it's not a dragon. It's not. Okay, so it's such a different experience hearing it from somebody else, or when I look at it, there's no dragon there. Okay, when I see a dragon, okay. Sometimes I get one of my pieces performed. It's an amazing thing. There's a couple of plays from the Heaven Exposed series. The Sinai Files got performed a few times. The performance, I just got informed in Jerusalem, they're going to do the Shushan Files. I'm sitting there watching the performance, and the actors are thinking it's a story. And I'm watching, and I just know the ideas, but these clowns up there think it's a story. It's not a story. It's an idea. But, okay, then. That's the same way. So God is looking at this world of ours. It's not a world. I'm talking to you. I'm explaining something to you. It's all it is my desire. It's me. Don't you see me there? Oh, what? We just see ourselves. We think, not only, we don't need, it's at least when you read Animal Farm, you think it's a nice story about animals. We think the story is real. It's a verse in Tehillim, Psalm 66, I think. It says, how great are your works, O God. You did such a great job that your enemies deny your existence. Right? Such great suspension of disbelief. He made it so real. He outdid himself. Nobody realizes it's a story anymore. And he's saying, it's just a metaphor. No, it's not a metaphor. We're really here. And I understand. They say that the metaphor is the secret of the universe. If you know how to make a metaphor, you can do anything. And everything, all that we do, all of science, all of art, all of humanities, it's all metaphor. It's all about creating these models of reality that aren't the real reality, and then whoever's doing it, the scientist especially, or the humanist, whoever they're doing, convinces themselves that the metaphor is the real thing. No, it's just your metaphor. There's no real model for the universe except for the universe itself. But guess what? The universe itself is a metaphor. Your life is a metaphor. Each of our lives is nothing but a commentary on the Or Ein Sof, on infinite light. That's why it's so full of paradox. The only way to communicate something infinite within a finite world is with paradox. So that's why life is so full of that. So when God, so to speak, removes himself, removes his light, the infinite light, we say, well, the light is really here. It's just subjectively not here. Right? As it's subjectively not here. Objectively, yeah. Subjectively, not. In other words, from the view from above, it's here, but our view from within, it's not. Okay. I seem to be repeating myself, but I'm not, because this is to say something else. What about God himself? Where did he go? Does he have the same fate as the Or Ein Sof? Is it possible to say, what do you think? Is it possible for us to say that God also is subjectively not here? If you went to Camp Gun Israel when you were a kid, you sang a little song, God is here, God is there, God is truly everywhere. If he's everywhere, you're going to tell me, but he's not within my subjective experience. Doesn't work. But people tell me that, so it must be true, right? So how do you answer that? If God is everywhere, how is it possible that I should not be aware of him being here?
So part of it would be back.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said part of it would be back to the examples that you just gave of whose perspective can I develop the awareness or approach the oneness of at least having an inkling of an understanding from God's perspective, and then perhaps I might see glimpses or have an idea that somehow God is present, just like you sing at camp, but you don't see him in the Ein Sof per se, because obviously you can't see the Ein Sof.
Okay, thank you, Joy. So what you're saying is that, well, you're going to have to work on it, right? I'll get to that point, and I will, but if you don't work on it, you're not going to experience, which is, yeah, but I'm left with the same problem again. That means that there's some person in the universe, could be quite a few of them, could be most of the 8 billion that we know of, where God is not there, at least within their subjective experience. If something exists in his universe, how could he not be there? How could it exist if it's outside of him? How could there be a subjective experience? Isn't he creating that subjective experience? What's he creating it out of? Out of his desire that it be there. There's nothing else to create it out of. Everything is only created out of his desire to be there. That's it. Okay, so what do we do? We had a class on this once. So this must have been 40 years ago. Yeah, about 40 years ago. Our teacher, Yoel Khan, he saw that we were like falling asleep because it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. We just got him out of bed to come and to give the class. And I don't know, there'd been some wild party the night before, and like we were just not there. So he starts asking us these questions to get us awake again. And he's asking this question, basically. Like what? Which comes down to, why can't you see God? Well, you could if you tried, but why don't you? Why do you have to try? You should just be there. Well, somebody says, well, because he's invisible. That's what I'm asking. So, where I think it's online as the invisible God or something like that. So it goes on, and like he was playing with us for like over half an hour, 40 minutes, and it's driving us nuts. And he says, listen, down the street, they're digging a ditch to lay power lines. God has to be there, right? The cook's in the kitchen making your breakfast. God is there, right? Some poor person is making his bowl of rice this morning. God has to be there within that experience, within that person. Has to be there, right? He said, God is hidden, but in a different way than anything else we know of is hidden. Anything else we say it's hidden. Why? Because there's something obstructing it. You can't see my hat because the table is obstructing it. Somebody says, well, what about radio waves? We can't see radio waves. What's obstructing? They're right here. Like somebody put it right there in the class. Every radio show and television show in New York, maybe in the whole world, is right here in this room. If it had been today, they would say every cell phone conversation is also in this room right now. Well, we don't see that. We don't perceive it. He says, yeah, it's not in your world, he said. It's not in your world. It's not in your realm of perception. So it's not here. The only one who truly is capable of hiding is God himself, because he's hiding in plain sight. He's here in your world, in your subjective experience of the world. And you don't recognize you're staring him in the face. He says, why? Why can't you see him? This is only one answer. He doesn't want you to. But you're seeing him, and not knowing that you're seeing him, how do you see him in what way? Very simple. You say, I. Where's I come from? There's only one I. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Your very experience of self, of ego. And this, the Maharal of Prague wrote it beautifully. That the human being is meant to be just like there's one God, Yechido Shel Olam, the one God, there's one human being. And therefore, every human being feels that I'm the only one. And we think, why do I feel I'm the only one? Must be that I am. Wait, but that doesn't make sense. Okay, so I have a conflict, but I still feel that way. We don't realize that that feeling is because within you, God is there. You're just misinterpreting it. Maybe you saw the video. There was a young man came in cowboy boots. I think he was at the time, he was an agent for one of the big bands, maybe for the Stones, whatever. And he came to 770, waited for when the Rebbe's coming out of his car, and walked right up to the Rebbe, said he has questions and wanted to know, where is God? The Rebbe said, you know, he's everywhere. Yeah, but where is God? The Rebbe said, if that is what you mean, he's here. And he pointed inside his heart. He just tapped on his heart like that. So we say, the light, this is the words of the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Zalman. The light was removed. The source of light was never removed. It's right here. openly. Hama'or b'hitgalut, the luminary is out in the open.
I don't think it's that.
The what?
I don't think it's that.
I can't hear you from way over there.
I can barely hear you, so we're on an even ground.
I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that complicated.
It's not so complicated. Okay, please explain. Yeah, go ahead.
Einstein talks about when the universe was cool, he proposed the Big Bang. We contain every element that was exploded from the whatever it was that banged out.
Right.
And that's, think about the old thing that's been for hundreds of years, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Yeah.
Einstein said he wasn't worried about heaven or hell or anything. He said he's giving back to the universe all the elements that were inside of him to continue the universe. And if you go to the time in the physics, matter cannot be created or destroyed.
So
Therefore, my elements are going to go back. I take great comfort in knowing that I'm part of the Big Bang, and I'm going to go back to a Big Bang. I'm not worried about it.
So let me think about, you're talking about the conservation of matter and energy. So Einstein says it's not just conservation of matter, but it's matter and energy.
It's not just conservation, it's the point of the fact that, I have gold in me, so, what is John Mitchell, we are stardust, we are golden.
Yeah, we started with, okay, Joan Baez, yeah, or was it Joni Mitchell? Okay, so we are started, yeah, but hold on. The universe starts off as a singularity, and then there's a Big Bang. In that singularity is all, whatever energy is going to be, and all of time, and of space, because space is expanding. Time, we don't really know. That means that every point of the universe, at its core essence, is that singularity, which means that within every point of time, in every point in space, and within whatever creature's subjective experience, is the entire universe. It's not a universe that's made of many, many parts. That's only superficially. In looking at it at a deeper way, it's a universe where each point of the universe is just the entire universe from a different perspective. We call this the holographic universe. It's a very useful concept in exploring the problem of the black holes and so on. We talk this holographic universe. All the information of the entire universe is within every particle. Explains many ideas. Explains how no two particles can be alike. Well, how could that be? How do they know what the other is doing in order not to be like that one? Because each one has all the information of the entire universe. Well, how do you fit the information of the entire universe within one particle? Listen, the entire universe, if you use a standard model for storing information that we know, the entire universe does not have enough room to store all the information that's in one particle of it. So there's not really a problem that one particle of the universe can store the information of the entire universe. But this is, again, it's very similar to this idea that we're stating here, that was stated earlier, that everywhere in the universe is the core essence of the universe, its creator. Even within each creature's subjective experience. That experience really is the core essence. And at every moment in time.
You keep on talking about subjective experience.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is a concept that I have a hard time with. The old story about the Buddhist monk who's sitting on the mountain watching a butterfly, and he's not sure He's a Buddhist monk thinking of a butterfly or a butterfly thinking of a Buddhist monk.
Okay.
So the reality is perceptual, and you're stating what being in the light. Well, if you're in the light, everything around the light is strong. Because we're standing at the same thing, you know, if you're standing here in a black hole, it's black. You know, there's a big difference in science that the brain can never understand itself.
Yeah, the brain can never understand itself.
So
And perhaps the reality that we're seeing, is it the true reality? We don't know what a true reality is. We say whatever is most useful to us, we accept as being a true reality.
On the edge of Valentine's Day,
Probably.
I think that love is just a chemical reaction. In my physical.
There are people who believe that love is a chemical reaction. There are people that believe that a chemical reaction is love. I think we pretty much abandoned the idea of anybody holding on to an absolute truth, and this is the absolute truth of what the universe is.
Unless you're wrong about it, everything is settled science.
Whatever science it is that you're doing, you're going to have a different type of. What's important, really, to me, is how am I going to live this life? This idea, we call it the etzem. There's an etzem. An etzem probably is the Jewish equivalent of the atom, but atoms mean something very different now than they used to mean. The etzem of each thing. What is the core essence of each thing? What is the core essence of the individual? It makes a huge difference in how I behave, in my behavior. And I'll show you why. There's actually a halacha. That's a very important halacha. A Jewish law, okay? It's in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. And it was probably something that happened more than once in those times. Halacha goes like this. Let's say there's a community, or it could be, in one case, it's a caravan, and the enemies come and they're capable of murdering everybody. And they're willing to cut a deal with you. Give us one of you, and we'll leave the rest alive. Give us nobody, wipe them all out. So the question is asked, what are you supposed to do? And the unequivocal answer is, you're not allowed. You're not allowed.
I thought that's one of the few times.
The what?
I thought that's one of the few times you take your own excuse.
Take
Your own life as excuse. I think that
a person could say that he's going to do that to save everybody else's life,
right,
but what they cannot do is say, okay, we're going to send one of you. Can't do that.
But there's one of the few times that suicide is acceptable.
Well, yeah, suicide could be, because it's not suicide then. It's the person's, you're saving lives. But the group cannot come along and say, well, with this guy out. So here you see a case where standard arithmetic no longer works. By standard arithmetic, if there's, say, 100 people here, one person is just 1/100th. So what's more valuable, 100 lives or one life? But the rabbi said, no, that's not the way it works. The Torah says you're not allowed to murder, and you become accomplice to murder by doing this. So we're not doing this arithmetically anymore. This is the war that humanity fought in the 20th century. The world was divided in two. There were those who said the individual is nothing but a function of the society, a member of that society. And what we must do is what is the best for the society as a whole. When we judge a person, consider this person's life, We should not consider this person as an individual, but as part of the society. What was basically fascism, and both the Nazis and the Bolsheviks were those fascists. And the other side of the world had to make a decision. Is that the way we're going? Which was pretty much the way the world was going until that point in time. Or will we stand for our original values that human life cannot be measured, the sanctity of human life? We still struggle with that. We still struggle with that idea. But the halacha comes firmly down on the individual is worth the entire society. And I think we've pretty much proven that a global community is not possible, it's not feasible without that principle. So it affects how I as on a global scale, I'm sorry for interrupting, but as I treat any individual, right? If there's a person here that I'm dealing with right now who needs me, and there are 100 people out there who say, well, you need to address all of us, I have to say, no, but what I'm doing right now with this person trumps all of that. Because this is what I'm doing right now. I'm dealing with an individual. That's why it says Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen to be the leader of the Jewish people. Why Moses? It said the Medrash says like this: one time he's taking care of the sheep, Jethro's sheep, and a little lamb runs off somewhere. He leaves his whole flock behind to go rescue the little lamb. Well, that's irresponsible. yeah, but that's a leader. A leader isn't a leader of a mass, it's a leader of individuals. So this idea that God at his essence, this etzem, is within every individual has huge implications for how we behave as human beings in day-to-day life. So now I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, just thinking about raising up an individual and responsibility. When I was younger, I read the play, like, you ever read?
You know, I went to a lot of rock concerts when I was younger, and it affected, lying on top of those big sun amps affected my hearing at this point. I played in a rock band. It really, my friends have the same problem. So, and I'm not going to get one of those hearing aids because then I'm going to feel old.
I'll make it easier.
Sorry?
I'll make it easier.
Thank you.
When I became a doctor,
Yeah.
75.
Uh-huh. Is your wife a doctor too?
No,
Because I was talking about paradox before.
no.
Sorry.
She's not.
So go ahead.
But the lifespan of a doctor is 10 to 15 years less than the general population.
Mhm.
Doctors either committed suicide, died of pneumonia, died of all things. I retired recently, and I thought about my career,
Mhm.
and I lived through HIV. When you don't remember, but in the 90s, every day there's a different story. You get furniture, you get toilet seats, you get taking hands. No one knew what came.
Yeah.
No one knew how to do it. They thought it was AIDS.
I'm just going to put this on so we pick up your voice here. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not saying anything was wrong.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And I lived through COVID.
But I remember the 90s just as well, yeah.
And I lived through COVID.
Yeah.
Didn't close my office, saw patients the whole time.
Wow.
And I kept on thinking of the doctor in the play where he's a chance to leave the area, but he decides to stay even though it meant certain death to him.
Hmm.
And it was just a simple sleep on his part because this was his job. My brother's a doctor, he went to telemedicine. I thought it was sort of bullshit, frankly. And
It's a cop-out, tell
yeah,
them.
of course.
Yeah, okay,
But he's my older brother, I was going to,
okay.
he's professor, how can you not be professor?
Yeah.
But anyway, I saw my staff son, as far as I know, none of us got it. But I'm thinking about all the things I sort of like spit in the eye and said, I'm gonna stay through it. There are other things I can do too, crisis situations. But the bottom line is, these are decisions, but I mean, became a doctor, I fully expected. One of the consequences of becoming a doctor was not just to be rich and drive a Cadillac, but, put my own life at risk.
The Cadillac doesn't go with you to the grave. Maybe you can't get in.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway,
Thank you. Thank you.
anyway, so,
Somebody shut the door.
something to say,
Okay. No, but you,
But the
it-
point
it's-
of fact is, we get no guarantees going in, we get no guarantees going out. And reality, and our reality is based on that. I see myself as part of the tribe, which you mentioned earlier.
Sarah, are you able to hear?
As
Okay,
long as you
can't hear
see
you,
I'm
Sarah.
scary looking. Whatever.
Okay, so I think Sarah was like, had her ear right up to the camera.
So I'm
But the
talking, I'm talking your body.
Okay. I turned the mic so that you should be able to hear.
Anyway,
It's not just individuals. It's also with time. Because every moment of time, I'll give you an example. This is also halachically speaking. So let's say you're involved in a mitzvah right now. Well, it could be somebody has a cold and they need Kleenex, whatever. So that's a mitzvah. You bring in a Kleenex to a person, and somebody else has a worse illness, right? So, and there's another doctor to take care of that. But you say, no, I want the bigger mitzvah. I want to take care of the bigger illness because I'm a big doctor. I shouldn't be. No, whatever moment in time you're in, is the most valuable one. Maybe that's not as good an example. A better example would be you're involved in something and you know that after doing this, there's going to be something bigger. That was a beautiful example. The Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he was living in Russia during the times of Stalin. Every move was being recorded. The walls had ears everywhere. He was being followed everywhere. And he had to take a train to go to Moscow, from Leningrad to Moscow that evening. And of course, he would be followed. And it's a very dangerous trip, the people they has to see and so on. And his son-in-law, who became the next Rebbe, comes into the room to see him beforehand. And he sees his father-in-law sitting back and studying a Gemara, studying a Talmud. It's like he said he couldn't believe it. He's about to go on this dangerous journey, and he's sitting there perfectly relaxed and fine and looking in his Talmud. And he asked his father-in-law, "How do you do that?" And he said, "You don't understand time. You don't understand what time is. Right now, I'm doing this. When I have to worry about that, then I'll worry about that. But right now, I'm doing this." In other words, whatever you are doing right now is the most important thing in the world. And if there's anything else, don't think about it because it doesn't come to the importance of this. Right now, what you're doing. Now, how few people do that? You're sitting with one of your grandchildren. Okay. And you've got this moment to sit with a grandchild and you're thinking about the bills that you have to pay. No, whatever moment you're in. And the same thing, whatever place you happen to be in. You say, but I'd rather be over there. Oh, I wish I could. No, whatever place you're in. So this is all from the same point. That symptom, as far as God is concerned, he never left.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Doctor.
Well, Jeff,
Jeff.
but I'll be back next week, but you hit upon a point that's very important to me as I'm getting older. I am getting older. Every hour, I'm not on the couch next to my dog and my wife is an hour I'm going to be listening later on. So
I got great advice once from a man. He was in his 80s. He looked like he was in his 50s.
Okay.
Sat next to him on a plane. I asked him, "How do you do it?" And he said a simple formula. I stay away from old people. If an old person comes and says hello, I just walk the other way. Just ignore them. Stay only amongst young people. He says, you stay around old people, you start acting like them, talking like, stay away from them. Don't talk to them. Just keep on walking, he said. Okay, have a good evening. Hope to see you again next week. Were there any questions from the people in the little boxes over there? You need to unmute if you have the question. Oh, nobody. Joy had nothing left to say. Shmuli's iPhone has nothing to say.
I actually have a
Kathy,
question.
yes, go ahead,
Yes.
please, Kathy.
So when you were talking about the difference between the infinite light and the source of the infinite light, because like the infinite light might be gone in that spot, but the source isn't. I guess my question is, what is like, because I feel like I've heard the infinite light described as God. So is God not the infinite light and just the source, or both?
I should have underlined that a little more, that this is it is a very important notion, because generally in Kabbalah, infinite light is capital I, it's God. But what's pointed out here by the Arizal and by others is that no, that's his light. He himself is not light. Darkness is from him as well. He's beyond darkness and light, or any of those binaries. So even when we say, well, the light is not here in a certain way, but he's still here. So we have to make a demarcation between his light and him. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing it out, because I obviously didn't make that point clear enough. Anybody else? Sarah, you were listening so intently, Sarah. You must have something that you wanted to comment. So,
Well, you mentioned desire, the ultimate desire. And what I was just wondering if there's like an answer to that. Is it, I mean, I've heard like bestowal, to give, but what is that, you know, I don't know what.
The point of that is that everything begins with desire, with God's desire. He decides that I desire this. He doesn't have to, but he chooses to desire. And so really at the core of everything is desire. And that's why those who experience the world as well, the infinite light is still here. It's a joyous experience. That means that everything is happening must be good. Just because I can't perceive that it's good, because I have a subjective experience. It's for me, it's not good. But if I could see it within the infinite light, it's joyous, it's desire, it's the source of all pleasure in life. So obviously everything is good. The story of Reb Zusha ben Napoli. So somebody came to the great Maggid and said, I don't understand. How is it possible that it says in the Talmud that a person has to make a blessing when bad things happen, just as he makes a blessing when good things happen? How can you make a blessing and thank God for things that are not good? How is it possible? So the Maggid said to him, you have to go see my student Zusha and ask him this question. Okay, so he goes to Anipol, he finds the house of Reb Zusha. He comes there and he sees it's a shack. The roof is falling in. There's no heat. Children are running around barefoot. There's hardly any food in the house. It's cold, it's dark. And Reb Zusha is so welcoming, come and sit down. I'll find a log for you to sit down on. We'll put some hot water for you to drink. So we got. So he's, why did you come? Well, the man says, the Maggid, your teacher, he told me to come to you to ask you this question. How is it that you can make a blessing for bad things just as for good things? And Reb Zusha says, why did he send you to me of all people? You must have the answer. I says, I couldn't have the answer. I never had anything bad happen to me in my life. I never suffered. How could I answer that question? So when you're living in that experience of everything is the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not good. So it's good, so you celebrate. And actually, when you do that, then you come to see that it's good, and you realize how much you have to celebrate. Okay, as we go on week by week, I hope we'll get more practical and down to earth with these things, bring it in more practical application. I end up floating up there, like a helium balloon, but we're gonna bring it down more and more to earth. But thank you. It's valuable to me when people ask questions like this, so I can remember to bring it back down to earth. So thank you, everybody, for coming. God willing, see you all more next week. Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Now,
You can't get away from us.
so